Welcome to this special edition of Hannity, the Trump Agenda. I'm Janine Pirro, in tonight for Sean. President Trump just moments ago wrapped up a speaking engagement at the rally for Luther Strange in Huntsville, Alabama. At the rally, President Trump explained why he's supporting Strange in the primary runoff election taking place on Tuesday. During that rally, President Trump touched on a number of big issues, including putting America first. Take a look.
I will always defend America's interest above all else. I'm here for you. I'm not here for global interest. We're not here for the rest of the globe. And we want to treat the rest of the globe right. And, you know, when I say America first, everyone's saying, gee. And I never liked it from the standpoint that if you're in another country, you want your country to be first by the leader, right? So nobody really understood. For years they've said America first, although I'm the one that really means it. There's a big difference.
President Trump also explained how the border wall is coming and soon. Here's what he said about that.
By the way, the wall is happening, folks, okay? Believe me. The wall is happening. So you need to have a great wall, but it has to be see-through. We are now looking at samples. We have 4 samples that have already been built, General, right? They've been built. And we're looking at different samples already of see-through walls. We are going to have as much wall as we need. You don't need it all the way. You know, you have 2,000 miles, you don't need it because you have a lot of natural barriers, etc. Somebody said, well, what are you going to do? You're going to build that wall in the middle of the river? Are you going to, that nobody can go in? Are you going to build that wall on the mountain? See, you don't need the wall on the mountain. You have a mountain, which is a wall. But we're going to build the wall. It's coming along great.
Another topic the president focused on tonight was the GOP failing to repeal Obamacare.
With Obamacare, I've been listening for 7 years. As many of these people, now Richard kept voting against it, but many of these people kept saying, repeal and replace, repeal and replace. Then they finally have, now they didn't care, nobody cared because they had a president that wasn't going to sign it. And they didn't have the Senate, so it didn't matter. So it didn't take much courage. So they were getting all these great votes, you know, like, I think they voted, what, 61 times? Like 61 times to repeal and replace. They finally get a president who will sign the legislation, and they don't have the guts to vote for it, okay? They don't have the guts to vote for it.
The president also spoke about how he wants to get tax reform done immediately.
We're moving quickly to pass a massive tax cut and simplification for the middle class. We want new tax returns. We want simplification. We want reform. And you know what we really want? We want massive tax cuts. That's what we're doing for business. That's what we're doing for the middle class. If we want to restore American prosperity, we need tax reform that is pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-worker, pro-family, and pro-American.
And North Korea's dictator Kim Jong-un got a warning from the president.
We can't have madmen out there shooting rockets all over the place. Rocket Man should have been handled a long time ago. He should have been handled a long time ago by Clinton. I won't mention the Republicans, right? But by Obama. Why did this, you know, this is a different time. This should have been handled 8 years ago and 4 years ago. And honestly, and 15 years ago and 20 years ago and 25 years ago. This shouldn't be handled now, but I'm going to handle it. Little Rocket Man. We're going to do it because we really have no choice. He may be smart, he may be strategic, and he may be totally crazy. But you know what? No matter what he is, we're going to handle it, folks. Believe me.
And joining us now with reaction on the president's remarks is Salem nationally syndicated radio host Larry Elder, America First Action PAC spokesman and senior advisor, former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark, and American Conservative Union Chair Matt Schlapp. All right, good evening, gentlemen. Matt, I'm going to go to you first. Why get involved in a primary election?
Yeah, you know, Judge, I was the political director for President Bush, and you should be very careful about weighing into these primary fights, because what's interesting in Alabama is most of the people you would consider the Trump voters are aligned with Judge Moore. But yet here you have Donald Trump coming in and endorsing Luther Strange, who quite honestly has been a very reliable vote for the Trump agenda. So it's a very tricky situation. And I tell you, Tuesday, I can't predict what's going to happen.
All right. David Clark, I mean, did the president make a good argument for voting for Luther over Judge Roy Moore?
Well, I think he's going to win either way here. I think whatever happens on Tuesday.
Wait a minute. You think, hold on, David. You think that Luther Strange is going to win because he's the underdog right now?
No, I'm not calling out who's going to win. I said that the president will win either way with whoever wins on Tuesday. I think there'll be a reliable Trump agenda supporter. So, this is the politics of primary. You can get a little sticky at times and get a little uncomfortable, but the president's going to come out a winner either way, no matter who wins the primary.
But did the president make a good argument, David, for supporting or having people vote for Luther Strange over Roy Moore?
Sure he did, because basically what he did, what I heard, is he blasted the GOP as a body. Look, the Congress as a body is dysfunctional. Trying to get them to work on anything together is like trying to herd cats. So what he's trying to do really is mobilize and energize the people, the public, all across America to start to put the pressure on the GOP to get his agenda passed and to get it underway. And right now, it seems to be stuck in neutral because of this dysfunctional Congress. And basically, the GOP's in charge, so it falls in their lap.
All right. Larry, what do you think about this? I mean, about the president getting involved in this primary race? And, when you think about it, I mean, he's got a lot on the line. If Luther wins, it's good for him. He came in, saved the underdog, and he goes back to, the legislature, a strong person. If Luther doesn't win, he goes back looking to get looking to get both health care and tax reform, looking weak.
Well, I was surprised he got involved in this race, too. Huntsville, Alabama is my mom's hometown, so I was pleased to see him. But I was surprised he got involved in this race. If he doesn't win, he loses prestige. People are going to think that it's okay to defy Trump. On the other hand, if he pulls this out and Luther Strange is the underdog, it suggests that the president has a lot more clout than people think. Look, his poll numbers are up. He comes off this Bothell United Nations speech. He still hasn't backed down from all of his promises, including the wall. So this gave him an extraordinary opportunity to restate his presidency and to talk about what he wants to do in the future. This is not a guy who's afraid of getting impeached, I'll tell you that.
Well, when we talk about him as an establishment candidate, this Luther Strange, Mitch McConnell's PAC, Matt, gave him $9 million.
Yeah, and this is becoming an increasing problem. I think it's one of the reasons why Luther Strange has struggled so badly. Judge, it's going to come as no surprise to you that if you're a candidate running out there in America and you are tied to the GOP Washington establishment, it is not a positive. And I'm surprised that PAC spent that money directly in the race. I think it's one of the impacts. I think Luther Strange is having trouble making the case that he is his own man, something that Judge Moore has demonstrated throughout his career. I tell you, the one thing I give for the president here, Judge, is he's rewarding his friend, and Luther Strange has been a reliable vote for him. But He is right to take on this Congress. 7.5 years of talking about Obamacare and watching these senators weasel out of it. I think people across this country, it's pitchfork time.
Well, it is. When you have the Oval and the Senate and Congress, David Clark, I mean, to not get anything done, to me, is a signal that the establishment is looking to get rid of Donald Trump. They are not looking to support him.
Well, look, that's precisely what's happening right now. There are people who are two-faced about this. I'm talking about the GOP. We know where the Dems stand on this thing, but within the GOP and in public, they might talk about how they're for tax reform, a market-based health care system, infrastructure rebuilding, law and order, and those sorts of things. But they're really not inside. They're really not pushing. And that's what the president needs. He needs people to help push this agenda through the Congress, and they're just not providing the heavy lifting that they need to do.
Right.
All right. You know what, Larry Elder, I want to move on a little bit about the speech. What did you think of the new title, Little Rocket Man?
I was going to say, Judge, Kim Jong-un has been demoted. He used to be Rocket Man. Now he's Little Rocket Man.
Yeah.
Look, other national leaders have referred to him as Rocket Man. Donald Trump says, and all of a sudden, Donald Trump's a warmonger. There was a cover story in The Economist, which is a British newspaper, 2006, with Kim Jong-un on it, calling him Rocket Man. Nobody said anything. Donald Trump says it. Now all of a sudden he's irresponsible and he's a warmonger. Double standard. It's just that Donald Trump derangement syndrome that we've been talking about ever since he became president.
He can't do anything right. But I'll tell you what, Matt, what I think he did right was give an incredibly strong speech at the UN, letting everyone know, you know what, it's okay if you want to support your country, I'm going to support mine. Not to the detriment of yours unless you're coming out to hurt me. I mean, I thought the speech was phenomenal.
He explained it so well. What was great about it for Donald Trump, he's so good at communicating in quick little bursts, but he actually gave us a philosophical understanding of what it means to stand up for a sovereign country, what sovereignty means, and he also talked about why communism and socialism continues to fail around the globe. And let me tell you, Judge, when he takes on Cuba and North Korea and Iran, I'm going to stand up and cheer every time.
Well, Cuba, North Korea, Iran, and David Venezuela as well, saying, you know, it wasn't a problem, and I don't have the quote exactly right, it wasn't a problem with socialism or the implementation. It's just a problem with socialism.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, what he said, words to the effect that it was implemented properly, socialism, and that is the problem. It was a fantastic speech, and every time he gets on the world stage like that, he did it when he was over in Warsaw, I hear people, even who might not care about him, say it's one of the best speeches they ever heard because he's a great communicator. But I was real pleased to see him stand up in that well at the UN and proudly talk about what America has accomplished, what America's about, that we're here to work with people that want to work with us, and it's a two-way street. But I'll tell you what, every time he gets on that world stage, the leadership that this guy exhibits, and I say that affectionately, the President of the United States, it's astounding. But now we have America that's going to be front and center in terms of working with the world. But again, America comes first. I like that.
All right, Larry Elder, finally, in terms of tax reform, health care, what do you think is going to happen this week?
Well, as you heard it from the speech, Trump hasn't given up. And I thought I heard some implied pressure on the Republican senator from Alaska who voted against the last repeal replacement bill, who hasn't decided yet. He's already written off Donald Trump, so he hasn't given up. And by the way, Judge, did you notice the tie matched his background, the white and red stripes, and the white and red stripes in the background? Yeah. You think that was a coincidence? I don't think so.
I don't know. All I know is that the president he's brilliant. He's a showman. He gets it. He gets it on so many levels. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next week or two.
Agreed.
Big impact on 2018. Anyway, thank you, gentlemen, for being with us tonight. And coming up, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, is here to talk about the latest example of North Korean aggression. That and more as a special edition of Hannity, The Trump Agenda continues.
Now he's talking about a massive weapon exploding over the ocean, Pacific Ocean, which causes tremendous calamity. Where that plume goes, so goes cancer, so goes tremendous problems. And I want to tell you something, and I'm sure he's listening because he watches every word, and I guarantee you one thing, he's watching us like he never watched anybody before. That I can tell you. And maybe something gets worked out, and maybe it doesn't. Personally, I'm not sure that it will. I can tell you one thing, you are protected, okay? You are protected. Nobody's going to mess with our people.
Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. That was President Trump earlier tonight at a rally in Alabama, again warning North Korea against further provocation. Earlier today, President tweeted, quote, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, who is obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his people, will be tested like never before. This comes after the rogue dictator called President Trump deranged and threatened to test a hydrogen bomb in the Pacific. Joining us with reaction is former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Fox News contributor John Bolton. Good evening, Ambassador.
Glad to be with you.
Thank you. The threat of a hydrogen bomb, I mean, which apparently is far more sophisticated than the atomic bombs of past, is pretty serious. I mean, does Kim Jong-un have the capacity, the capability to do that?
Well, we don't know, but he certainly, by most expert opinions, in his 6th nuclear test, did detonate a thermonuclear weapon. Some think perhaps his 4th test was also thermonuclear, and he's shown he's got the range for his ballistic missiles. Now, the president is correct when he says that one of the dangers from a thermonuclear blast over the Pacific is the radiation that would come from it. A lot of the experts are now also worrying about whether there's a potential EMP effect from it, electromagnetic pulse. Depends on where the device is detonated. Would it take out satellites in orbit? If it were lower, could it take out electrical grids and communication systems in land areas near where the detonation takes place? So this is more serious than just setting off a big firecracker, and I think it shows fundamentally why the president is properly concerned about how irrational this regime is. You know, wars can start not simply because people intend they start, but through miscalculation, and you see a dictatorship like this, miscalculation should be much on our mind. Well,
you know, earlier I read that what Kim Jong-un did with regard to that ICBM that was headed toward Japan, because, you know, his alignments are not that specific. It could just as easily have hit Japan. And the concern is if it's not that sophisticated, the targeting, then everyone is in trouble.
Well, we don't really have that good an idea how sophisticated the capabilities are. Everybody, I think, has been surprised in the past 3-4 months at the range of some of the missiles launched and frankly, at the thermonuclear detonation in the 6th test. But what's troubled me is that in these 2 launches you mentioned that have overflown Japanese territory, there was no effort by them or by us to engage with missile defense systems. Now, our response to that is, well, we didn't think it threatened Japanese territory. But as you rightly point out, these weapons can fail, their trajectory can go off, or the North Koreans might actually be more sophisticated and have maneuverable capabilities for their missiles. So I think this is very dangerous, and I think the president's trying to alert us. He certainly tried to alert the rest of the world on Tuesday that he's not going to allow this kind of dictatorship, or I would say Iran, to extort the American people through the threat of the use of nuclear weapons.
You know, the president yesterday signed that, I believe it was yesterday, signed the executive order where he increased the Treasury Department's ability to sanction those who are doing business with North Korea. And the curious thing is that China came along. What do you think brought China along, where they're saying their central bank cannot deal with anyone who's working with North Korea?
Well, it's potentially quite a significant step. I think the president's sanctions, although they don't use the words China and Russia, everybody should understand that's who they're aimed at. So we'll see if China follows through. Part of our problem for 25 years, and I think the president, again, was right to say this is a 25-year-long failure that he's now inherited. China will say one thing and do another. If, in fact, China has made a significant move here, it will have a tremendous impact on North Korea. China really supplies 90% of North Korea's energy. It is its financial lifeline to the outside world. And they haven't applied pressure in the past because they're worried the regime will collapse. Maybe their attitude's changing.
Well, and if indeed, you know, Kim Jong-un does make a decision to try to do something, I mean, I believe the president when he says, you know, you're covered, we've got your back. The president will be able, with our military and the sophisticated technology we have, to prevent prevent that kind of thing from happening if he were to try to attack with an ICBM, correct?
Well, let's be honest, though. Our missile defenses are not what they ought to be after 8 years of Barack Obama slashing the Bush administration's missile defense plan. We don't have what are called layered missile defenses. We don't have the sort of capabilities that were envisioned where we could try and take out missiles in the boost phase, in the mid-course, or in the terminal phase. So I think really there's no doubt that if a North Korean missile landed on Guam or, God forbid, on the continental United States, that we would do what the president said and destroy North Korea. Colin Powell used to call that turning North Korea into a charcoal briquette.
Right.
The question is whether we strike first to prevent that kind of tragedy from happening, and that decision, I think, is still up in the air.
Well, clearly it's preemptive, but then the question is it preemptive based on the fact that we were about to be hit? And that clearly is the issue. But one more question. You mentioned the electric grid. If they were to put an EMP or some kind of nuclear device on a satellite in the southern hemisphere, we are vulnerable.
Yeah, and look, let's be clear. This is an act of war. The fact that it takes out, let's just say, electrical grids or communication systems, it may not kill people immediately, but it's still an act of war because the knock-on effect of it could well be disruption of air traffic control systems, tragedies that happen when electricity goes out. We just simply, in my view, cannot tolerate leaving North Korea with a nuclear weapons capability. And by the way, that's exactly what the president said to the UN on Tuesday.
Yep, so we did. All right, Ambassador, thanks so much.
Thank you, Janine.
And coming up, Doug Schoen and Tammy Bruce are here to weigh in on the GOP healthcare battle. That and more as this special edition of Hannity, the Trump Agenda, continues.
Your premiums are surging. Your deductibles are through the roof. Alabama's way up, but we have states that are up 150%. We have one state, the state of Alaska, it's up more than 200%. And I'm having a hard time getting a certain vote, but she's a good person, and I think she's going to come through. I mean, if you look, Alaska is up over 200%. So that means Obamacare is no good. Insurers are fleeing, doctors are quitting, choices are disappearing. Congress must do its job by ending the Obamacare nightmare.
Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity, the Trump Agenda. That was President Trump at tonight's rally in Alabama, talking about the battle to repeal and replace Obamacare. An already heated debate that intensified today after Senator John McCain said he won't vote for the Graham-Cassidy proposal. So where does this leave Senate Republicans in their final effort to end the disastrous Obamacare? Joining us now is radio talk show host and Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce and Democratic pollster and Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. Okay, so today we find out John McCain is out. It's no surprise he dragged himself out of a sick bed to come back and vote no.
Yeah.
Are you surprised?
Well, you know, it is because his best friend forever, Lindsey Graham, this is his bill. And what Senator McCain noted was that they hadn't gone through the right process. Maybe he could have supported it if there were committee meetings and bigger discussions and other votes on other elements. The fact is, though, he knew from this point on that wasn't going to happen.
They've had 7 years to talk about it over
tea. But even this, he's had to have known what the dynamic was. And I think, look, at this point, everyone knew that this would happen. Now, even with his no vote and Rand Paul's no vote, it's not dead. But then it comes down to Murkowski and Susan Collins. And so I think at this point, this will also affect Alabama, as you've been talking about, because it's a reminder of the swamp. It's a reminder of the con that we've been undergoing.
All right, Doug, let me ask you this.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, is there any chance of a Democrat coming on board?
No, but what there is a chance is, because since it is going down, because Susan Collins said she's leaning against today, and she was against all the other repeal efforts.
Right.
We could do a bipartisan deal, add more competition to the system, as we did with the debt ceiling. American people are very happy with that, and Trump's numbers are going up. This is where it's heading. This isn't going to work, and I think Tammy is right. It will impact Alabama, but help Judge Roy Moore and her. Luther Strange.
Well, I think so. I mean, as I said earlier, Luther Strange is, he got $9 million from Mitch McConnell's PAC. And speaking of Mitch McConnell, you would think that in order to get the votes in the Senate, anyone who disappoints him, I mean, this is politics, not church. Anyone who disappoints him, you punish them, you take away their committee memberships, their committee assignments. Why isn't Mitch McConnell doing that?
Look, if he had done that with Murkowski and Susan Collins with the first vote and removed their power, maybe they would have learned something. If he had maneuvered some of those at-risk senators, the Democrat senators for this coming midterm, maybe he would have 2 or 3 of the 10 that are at risk. But he's never made
Why
those
isn't he
moves.
doing that?
Because I think he wants what Doug has suggested. They want the system to remain as it is. And in fact, what we're trying to do, and the American people
you agree
do
with
not
that,
want
Doug?
this
I
to
think
stay.
it's even more elemental. He's only got 52 votes. If he loses 2 or 3 of his members of his caucus, he could have the most calamitous outcome possible.
But this is what we were just
losing
talking
his
about.
own job.
Right.
But- and
losing
that-
his job. You're
Right.
talking about in
Mitch McConnell's
leadership.
job.
Yeah, well, that's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Let's talk about Rand Paul.
Sure.
Now, Rand Paul says he wants more of this focused on the states. This, Graham Cassidy, is more state-focused. What's with Rand Paul?
I don't understand. He said this is more Obamacare. This struck me from a conservative's point of view as a perfectly reasonable piece of legislation. So I can't make hide or hair or any sense of Rand Paul.
It does
What's he
repeal.
doing?
It repeals the mandates. We
Right.
know that. What it doesn't do is it doesn't change the health care requirements that are offered. So there's just still too much of the same elements in this. And of course, it does not repeal a great deal. It does get rid of mandates, and that's good. And it doesn't tell the states to set up risk pools, which is a problem. I don't trust states when you send a block grant of money that they'll even use it as they're supposed
Yeah,
to
but
use
you
it.
know
I
what?
agree with
becomes
that.
a problem.
You don't trust the states, but
No.
here's the thing.
There need to
Who
be
is in a
mandates
better
about rest
position to solve the problems than the people closest to it? And to me, that says the state should handle that. And by the way, Medicaid, Medicare, and a lot of this stuff, when I was a prosecutor, I used to prosecute these cases. If we could go after the fraud and corruption and make the individual states responsible for resolving that, they'd all save a lot of money.
Look, I'm all for getting rid of fraud and abuse, but we have a path now, which is a bipartisan plan, no single payer, introduce competition, tort reform, help make catastrophic plans available to young people. Do that, do it quickly. American people will like it. It'll help the president. That's the path.
Donald Trump was elected in large part, and so were the Republicans, on repealing or replacing Obamacare. We've hated it.
not gonna happen.
It's destroyed our lives.
Done.
It's destroying the economy. What they don't want is for the president to allow the people that did that to do more of it. So this is on the GOP. But this is a good first step. It's not perfect, but to suggest that the Democrats should have a hand in more of what they've done, it's like asking the arsonist to help us put out
Look,
the fire.
I'm a Democrat.
it
I'm
is
not
on
an
the
arsonist.
GOP.
I'm a proud American. We can work together to improve an obviously flawed system. This is the art of the possible. Let's do it. You were right, Judge.
About what?
That we need bipartisanship.
Well, wait a minute. What I believe is that the Republicans who have the Oval, the House, and the Senate ought to get on board, do their
But it's
job, or
failed.
admit that they're part of
They
the
lost
swamp
3
and
votes
get them
today.
out.
It's done.
I don't know if it's done.
Not necessarily.
You know, did you
It's
hear
not
the
done till it's
president?
done.
What he said was, Lisa Murkowski, he's talking about her. He didn't mention her name.
She's not enough.
200% up in Alaska, but
I
she's
heard
still
that.
a nice person.
Right. But he basically said he didn't think we were going to get reform. He's basically right. And even if
So
Lisa,
then do we go to tax reform or do we call it a day?
we have to go to tax reform.
Here's the issue too: is it's the personal dynamic of people like with Senator McCain, who so loathe the president that they don't want him to have a victory. The president has to come in and also start to maneuver and work with McConnell in horse
He's gotta
trading.
call Chuck
and
Schumer is what he's
he's
gotta
Yeah,
do.
maybe
got to
call
call
Chuck and
in
Nancy.
some-
You never
Exactly.
know.
That's
Maybe
what's gonna
you know what?
happen.
Maybe that'll get
That's
the
the deal.
Republicans in line.
That's the deal.
Anyway, Tammy, Doug, thanks
Great.
so
Thank
much.
you.
And coming up, Sean recently sat down with recording artists Kaya Jones and Joy Villa to talk about the upcoming Berkeley Free Speech Week. That and more as a special edition of Hannity continues. Stay with us. Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. The Free Speech Week at Berkeley is scheduled to kick off on Sunday, but there are reports tonight that it is canceled. But the organizer, as of today, says the event is still on, although he is holding a press conference tomorrow. Last night, Hannity spoke with recording artists Kaya Jones and Joy Villa, who were going to attend the event but decided not to after they received death threats. Take a look.
This is serious. So you wanted to go out, free speech, Berkeley, the home of the free speech movement.
Yes.
What happened?
Free Speech Week, right?
Right.
We were asked to come out, and we had threats on our life.
Yeah.
Like, we've had serious threats.
And I couldn't get any security in time. We have security, and so there was no one. We don't live there, so it was kind of just tricky. And they were asking us to come in early to do something for them, and it's.
Yeah.
You've seen what's happened when conservatives try and speak there.
Yeah.
Right.
What is your reaction to that?
It's horrible. I mean, we're doing our best to try and bring the nation together. We're singing songs that are pro-America. Her song, Make America Great Again. What is wrong with that? I'm singing about what the heart don't know and paying homage to military families.
Both your videos are amazing. Both your songs are amazing.
Thanks,
I'm going to
Sean.
post them by the end of the show on Hannity.com.
thank you.
Awesome.
They're both incredible. So, but it's got to be scary.
It's horrible, and it's intimidation to the highest degree. I mean, we just came from Houston raising $3 million for the relief. 100% of the proceeds go to the relief, and we're trying to just be out with Milo speaking, be a part of, Free Speech Week, and being told you're going to have yourself in a riot and want to kill you, and, how could you do that, and who are you guys to think that you're, able to have that kind of pull, and it's like, we're actually supposed to be singing.
And we're not, strangers to death threats. We do get a lot of them because we're out for Trump. But this time they made specific threats on our life. They said, we're going to come there, we're going to find you, we're going to kill you. And like Kaya said, we don't have the pool right now to get our security together. We have a small security team on the grounds there, but our management said this is really dangerous.
Okay, so it's got to be disheartening for you.
It is.
Yeah.
All right, so you're both artists.
Yes.
We understand most singers, most performers, most entertainers are liberal.
Right.
Okay, but you're conservative. By the way, which makes me like you more, both of you. So the question is, and Americans like the fact that, wow, there's some people that have their own political thoughts.
Right.
How hard has it been as supporters of Trump?
It's been honestly almost impossible. We have to force our way into some things. We have to speak up even stronger because a lot of people turn their backs, like on the red carpet. They'll turn their backs on us. They won't take photos of us. They won't promote us. For me, I've been told, you're not welcome here. I almost got...
Give me an example, Joy.
Fashion Week
was
in March in Los Angeles, right after the Grammys, where I wore my Make America Great Again dress. One of the organizers of Fashion Week heard I was coming, and I was coming as a VIP to watch the designer, who happened to be one of my good friends. And he said, no, not that Trump girl. She's not allowed here. I mean, I came anyways through the designer, but if he had control over the situation, he would have blacklisted me from Fashion Week.
Unbelievable.
Censorship
Simply
as
for
well.
thinking different.
Censorship as well. I mean, YouTube was censoring me with my views. They were taking away views, and they were censoring Joy, and it was due to the fact that, I mean, what other reason could it be?
Has there been an upside? In other words, there's another group of people that appreciate the fact that there are entertainers that like the president and...
I mean, I think if you're gonna pose your narrative and you're gonna be strong in your way and finding your lane, you're gonna not have everyone love you. The president knows that, right? Not everybody loves him.
Oh, I kind of know it a little.
Right, you know it a little too. But that's the point: is if you're gonna change the world or you're gonna be a figure, you have to know that not everyone's gonna agree with you or see, eye to eye. But over time, hopefully, they'll understand that it's all for the better.
And we have young fans. Honestly, I have to say on YouTube, for my 13-year-old fans who are conservatives, who write me every day, who say, I look up to you, Joy, because I get made fun of in school, or my parents don't understand. And there's so many young conservatives right now. There's a huge movement. So having two singers that they can look up to, it makes it all worth it.
Coming up, Charlie Kirk and Greg Jarrett are next. That and more as a special edition of Hannity continues.
It seemed too good to be true. $2 million.
I've just come from a very productive week at the United Nations General Assembly. It's one of the greatest honors of my life to represent the American people on that world stage. And I will tell you, the world is starting to respect the United States of America again.
Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity, the Trump Agenda. That was more of President Trump at tonight's rally for Luther Strange earlier tonight in Huntsville, Alabama. Joining me now with reaction is founder and executive director of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. All right, guys, just a quick question about the president at the rally tonight. He seems to have had a very successful week, Greg, with the UN and then tonight in Alabama. How do you think that's going to impact the election of Luther Strange and his legislative agenda?
Look, this is a deeply conservative state, Alabama, and the president's incredibly popular there, 83% approval rating among Republicans. So he may be able to give the momentum for Luther Strange to overcome the diminishing lead by Judge Roy Moore. My problem with Moore is he wasn't fit to sit on the Alabama Supreme Court, which makes him not fit to sit in the U.S. Senate. He was twice removed from office, once for defying a federal court order, which you cannot do. No judge can do that. And then he defied the United Supreme Court to U.S. Supreme Court ruling on same-sex marriage. He seems to think he is above the Supreme Court.
You know, I think that judges are constantly going against precedent or mandates. But I think what's interesting with Roy Moore is he refused to take down the statue of the Ten Commandments. I mean, and it seems to me that that would align him with a lot of the Trump followers who are not so much by the letter of the law, although they are law and order, and I understand that, but more on religion and God and country. Charlie, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Sheriff David Clark said earlier in the show. No matter who wins on Tuesday, President Trump is going to win here. Look, Alabama is a deep conservative state. His base remains incredibly strong. But look, the president's had an incredible week. You know, I tweeted out earlier, and the president actually responded today to my tweet where I said the speech that the president gave at the UN General Assembly was the greatest speech by a modern president on the world stage in my lifetime in the last 30, 40 years. You look at the significance of it. Not only did he call out, you know, the crazy dictatorships in the Asian perimeter, but he also called out Marxism in Venezuela. He talked about the need to defend your own country's interest on the international stage. He's had a wonderful week, and I think things are really starting to look up now that we enter the fall legislative calendar.
All right, let's talk about what's going on with Free Speech Week at Berkeley. I mean, I'm just fascinated by this. And today, Greg, Jim Comey, former fired FBI director, was interrupted many times, and I think we may even have a clip of that while he was giving a convocation address at Howard University.
Thank you, President Frederick.
Now, what's amazing about that, Greg, is that it went on for several minutes. Jim Comey stepped back, apparently, you know, held his hands in front of him and said, I hope you'll stay to listen to what I have to say. I just listened to you for 5 minutes, all right? It turns out they didn't care, and there was no effort made to remove the demonstrators. They invited him to speak, and they don't remove the demonstrators.
Howard University should be deeply embarrassed about this. The faculty and the administration just sat there on the stage doing absolutely nothing about the chaos that ensued. Look, college campuses are supposed to be venues for the free exchange of ideas and information. You're supposed to, when you're a college student, listen and learn. But increasingly, college students today have nothing but contempt for education.
And And Charlie, not just contempt for education, but contempt for anyone that they don't agree with, to the point where they will disrupt.
Yes.
There is no respect for authority, for discipline, and I mean, what do the colleges do about this? If they won't even have the demonstrators removed, what can be done about these colleges?
Right, and the problem is they glorify these demonstrators. In fact, you see administrators all across the country almost lift these demonstrators up and say, oh, look at the wonderful courage that it takes. Well, and a lot of the time, these are rioters. You know, in this instance, they weren't. But you look at Berkeley, I mean, they had to bring in the police force this last week when a conservative, Ben Shapiro, came on campus. The bill was $600,000 just to have one conservative speaker come for an hour. And free speech isn't really so free anymore. It's actually quite expensive. But this is exactly what the left wants to do. They want to make it nearly impossible for anyone with an idea in the center right to come on campus.
Shame on the universities. I mean, should they be losing some of their federal monies?
Well, they absolutely should be. And but it was naive of Comey to think that he could appear at Howard University and deliver an address that had nothing to do with race relations and the issues students care about.
Coming up, more of this special edition of Hannity, the Trump Agenda, right after the break. Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left this evening. But don't forget to tune in to Justice tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll have on former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, former Governor Mike Huckabee, and me. Plus, Sean moves back to his old time slot, 9 p.m. Eastern, starting Monday. Have a great night. See you tomorrow night.